This is a daily tip from BetQL presented by BetMGM. Let's head to the Roman guest line and bring in Ariel Epstein, a frequent visitor on this show, and for good reason. She is the prop queen and sports betting analyst for Yahoo Sports. Ariel, are you a big breakfast person, and are you going to celebrate Cinco de Mayo?
I am not a breakfast person. Good morning. Thank you guys for having me on. I have not really enjoyed breakfast pretty much ever in my life. It just never fills me.
Whoa.
As for Cinco de Mayo, I celebrate it in a different way. It's my dog Bailey's birthday on Cinco de Mayo. We always celebrate her birthday. Happy birthday, Bailey.
Oh my God, what a holiday. But how do you not like breakfast foods? There's so many good breakfast foods. Ariel, there's not a single one that you like?
Now that I'm older, so when I was younger, I used to like French toast. It was my favorite. The problem was that French toast only filled me for about 2 hours, then I was starving again. Now that I'm older, if I have an egg white omelet with American cheese and a biscuit on the side, I'm good to go. That's a pretty good meal. I just skip breakfast usually, or I have a granola bar, I work out, and then I eat a big lunch.
Okay, that sounds like a much healthier lifestyle than eating a rack of ribs for breakfast. So we're talking to Ariel Epstein. You know her as the prop queen. And Ariel, one thing I know you're not going to skip on is some baseball play, some props. So what's one that you're looking at this morning?
One that I'm looking at, let's start with the early games because I want to make sure people get those in before they move. 1:40 p.m. Eastern time, the Cincinnati Reds are at the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm betting the over 5.5 strikeouts in plus money, plus 110 on the Cincinnati Reds right-hander, Hunter Green. Milwaukee is the fifth highest K rate in baseball. They have the third highest up against right-handers. Righties are 8-7 over-under their K prop this year. Green's gone over 5.5 strikeouts. He was on the road at Colorado. He had 6, which is really tough to do at Coors Field. It's typically an unders park. He's got 6 with the LA Dodgers and 7 with the Atlanta Braves. The only team that Hunter Green did not go over this number of 5.5, he was up against the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals he had 3 strikeouts against are the lowest K rate team in baseball. I can't take that game into consideration because St. Louis doesn't strike out a lot. Give me the over 5.5 strikeouts on Hunter Green and plus money, 1:40 p.m. Eastern time, first pitch.
Hunter Green is a big-time prospect, and I think a lot of people have seen him because he throws absolute gas. He's thrown over 100 miles an hour on some of his pitches. Really fun to watch. And speaking of prospects, Jesus Lizardo used to be a big-time prospect for the A's. He was traded to the Marlins, and he's having a much better season this year. I think there's a prop that you're looking at for Lizardo today.
I'm looking at his over 4.5 strikeouts. The lefty for Miami's up against San Diego. Now, even though the Padres do have one of the lower K rates in baseball, they're still 9-7 over under their starting pitchers against them. Starting pitchers are averaging just over 5 strikeouts against the Padres, right-handers at least. Looking at Lizardo's numbers, he's gone over 4.5 strikeouts. Against Seattle, he had 5. Against Atlanta, he had 8. And against the Angels, he had 12. Again, who was the team he went under this number against? The St. Louis Cardinals. He had 3 strikeouts against the Cards. Lowest K rate team in baseball. I love Lizardo over 4.5 strikeouts today against the Padres. They're just one of those, even though they have a low K rate, they're still one of those iffy teams that, like, their starting pitchers are 14-11 overall against them on their K prop. 9-7, like I mentioned, with righties. I'm going to go bet the numbers over 4.5 strikeouts on Lizardo.
We're chatting with the prop queen, Ariel Epstein. You can see her fine work on NBA TV and MLB Network. She's also on MLB Network's pregame spread weekdays at 5 p.m. in the East. Ariel, when you look at the Marlins-Padres game today, we've seen a bit of a line flip where now the Marlins are favored minus 115 on the money line. What's going on here?
This one's very fishy. I love when Marlins lines are fishy because it's just funny those Marlins. Anyway, Miami goes from plus 105 overnight to minus 115. San Diego minus 130 to minus 105. Sometimes you'll see the overnight line flip somebody from plus money into minus. You just don't always see them flip to the actual favorite. Miami flips to being the favorite in this game. Minus 115, San Diego minus 105. The Padres are home. It's funny, though, because Chelsa and I were talking before the show. I said, what on earth is going on? Holy line flip. Chelsa goes, well, maybe it's because the Padres played all day yesterday. It was so true. It felt as if the Padres were constantly playing from like 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. After understand the fatigue. They also had a doubleheader, the Padres, yesterday. I could see why Miami could be favored. And as we mentioned before, Jesus Lizardo's a really good, he's a great pitcher who was a top prospect coming up out of the minors. He's a lefty. I would lean towards Miami, and also seeing this total drop 7 to 6.5 to have a low scoring game here.
I don't think we've touched on this. Have you given us your strikeout prop for Nick Martinez? I know we have done a deep dive on this Marlins-Padres game, but I think you have a play there as well.
I like the over on 4.5 strikeouts for the San Diego starter, Nick Martinez. Miami is the 7th highest K rate in baseball. Right-handers, 9-8 over-under, but they're averaging just over 5 strikeouts per start. Martinez, he had 5 against Cincinnati and 6 against San Francisco. Although he didn't have great outings and went under this number against Atlanta and the Dodgers, Miami has become one of those more prone K rate teams. Last year, they were a top 10 K rate team. This year, Miami's a top 10 K rate team. What's been really interesting with the K props in the last week has been that you're starting to see those teams from last year that were high K rate teams start to become more of those high K rate teams again. Seeing it with Atlanta, they started out this year not striking out a lot. Now in the last few weeks, they've been more strikeout prone, just like they were last year. Same thing with Tampa Bay Rays. Same thing with the Miami Marlins. That's something I've been keeping a close eye on. Who were those teams last year that we may start to see go back to what they were like in 2021 and now again in 2022?
Ariel, we're about a month into the season now, and so now we have enough of a sample size where we can identify some trends. What are some that you've been seeing?
The Seattle Mariners unders on K props is definitely something to keep an eye on. I know I keep talking about K props, but Seattle, they have the starting pitchers against the Mariners, 5-14 over under their K prop this year. Something to definitely keep a close eye on. The Cleveland Guardians are another unders team, especially when it comes to right-handed pitchers. Righties are 3-10 over under their K prop this season. Overall starters, 7-16. Texas Rangers, another unders team for K prop. So just keep a close eye on some of those teams. And I mentioned many times already, the St. Louis Cardinals, another unders K prop team. I had people DMing me on Twitter. They were asking me, you're betting a lot more unders this year in K props than you are overs, and usually you were more of an overs better. I was more of an overs better in the past. It's really been an unders type of season so far. Even when it comes to totals in baseball, the unders were cashing in the majority more than the overs were. It's just something that we're going to have to keep a close eye on. And the thing is, like I always say to people, don't get too high on trends, because if you start backing a trend way too much, then long baseball season decides to change. You're going to get so in your own head about changing that you're not going to want to fade the trend. Like, just don't rely on just trends. In baseball, it's all about numbers. Try to rely more on the numbers than you do on these trends.
And then one more trend that I feel like I've talked with you before about is unders on starting pitchers at Coors Field. Because yesterday I took one on Patrick Corbin. It was really low, 3.5. He only had 3. So one more trend. And finally, before you go, let's talk about the Ravens a little. I know you're a huge Ravens fan, and during the draft, I think some people were a little sad to see Hollywood Brown go. What's your take on the Ravens trading away Hollywood Brown?
I was not one of those Ravens fans who was upset about seeing Hollywood Brown go. I'm glad that he's going to go to a system that he feels fits him better. That's what Hollywood Brown said. Arizona will throw the football more. They will throw it deep to him more. Now that DeAndre Hopkins is suspended the first 6 games of the year, he'll be one of the top receivers for them. The Ravens are going to get back both their starting running backs after both them missed all last season. Baltimore's always been more of a rushing offense. They're not really relying on the pass with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback. I had no issue with the move. The Ravens ended up doing some more miraculous NFL draft stuff like they always do by getting themselves back in the first round and getting the pick back that they lost to get back in the first round, all for Hollywood, who I don't even really deem a number one, like a first round draft pick anymore. His hands were not reliable. He wasn't a number one receiver. The Ravens are going to have, to me, I think Rashad Bateman, who came out of Minnesota last year, he was a better number one wide receiver. Yeah, he's not necessarily a deep threat, but his yards after the catch, he was always a first down type of player. I really like the way that the Ravens did that with Hollywood Brown. So no issues with it for me.
You can see her on MLB Network's pregame spread each and every weekday at 5 o'clock in the East with Matt Vasgersian, and she's also a sports betting analyst for Yahoo Sports. It's the prop queen, Ariel Epstein. Ariel, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck today.